Hello YouTube, it's your boy, the Passport Bro, Wingman, coming at you again with another YouTube video. And the title of this video is called Date Immigrants, Passport Bros. You don't need to leave the United States to date foreign women, says a detractor. And the way this video came about was I was watching a variety of different videos, and one of the rebuttals that I hear a lot of times is, if foreign women are so great, then how come a lot of the passport bros just don't date the foreign women that are here with all the, immigration and that kind of thing? How come passport bros don't just date the immigrant women here? Why don't they just deal with those women? If immigrant women in general are just so feminine, why don't they deal with those women? So I kind of wanted to address this and, give my response and go into detail about a few things. So let me start off by saying this. First off, some of the passport bros do wind up dating some foreign women in the United States, and they never become a full passport bro because they met a foreign woman here, they marry her here, so as a result they don't necessarily have to travel. And I say that to say that when I first learned about foreign women, this was back, I'm going to say at least maybe like 10 years ago, when I was working at a McDonald's in Florida. And the McDonald's I worked at had a whole lot of different immigrants in there, even a few that turned out to be illegal. And anyway, while I was there, I did wind up dating one of the immigrant women's there. So I say that to say that there are a lot of men in general that do wind up dating foreign women that are in the States. And even AMS, who was a dating coach, had mentioned that he encountered a few foreign women when he was in the New York area, and he did acknowledge that he did see that there was a little difference in the way they generally act in their attitude versus some of the native, versus some of the American women. So I said it to say that there are some passport bros that do date some of the foreign women here. Now I'll say this, in my opinion, the experience with them is not going to be the same as it is dating them in their native country. And I'm going to list some reasons why. But I will say this, even the ones that are here, even the immigrant women that are here, you will see that even dealing with them is a whole lot better than dealing with some of the American women that are here. And it's mostly because a lot of them still have their culture intact. So you're going to see even within like their own like enclaves within the country, you're going to notice how they treat their men versus how a lot of American women treat their men. You're going to see a difference there. Now, I want to go into why it's going to be a little bit different, for a variety of different reasons. Keep this in mind. And this goes with a lot of foreigners in general. What you're going to kind of notice when a lot of foreigners come here, they kind of have a stereotype about Americans in general, that we're pretty much just like a party culture. And what you will notice is some of these groups, some of the immigrant groups, will encourage their children to stay away from Americans in general. Like a lot of times they'll keep their children from wanting to hang out with other American children because they feel that they're going to Americanize their children. It's going to kind of ruin the culture. That's why a lot of times you will hear about, I had a friend when I was in college who was from India. And while he was in India, I guess and this is like a backstory I heard, like while he was there, when he was in India, he was going to class all the time. He was getting good grades. So his family allowed him to go to the United States, and he went to FSU, which is in Tallahassee, Florida. So when he got there, he started doing a whole lot of partying. He was smoking. He was getting into a whole lot of trouble, and he even started ruining his grades. So, so pretty much when his family found out that he got so Americanized, they told him to come back home to kind of help him get his stuff back together. And I say that to say that a lot of times, even though you do have some foreign women that are here, keep in mind that some of them, a percentage of them, at some point, especially if they're young, are going to become somewhat Americanized, and they're going to kind of dib and dab in the culture. And you're going to see part of the culture that they have, some of it is going to deteriorate. Not to the point, put it this way, even with this guy, it wasn't to the point as it is with any other American. To me, he still seemed kind of very traditional. Just he was, to me, he seemed like what's the word? Put it this way, it's not to the extreme that like a lot like some hard partiers would do that are like American in general, in my opinion. But in comparison to his culture there, for him it seemed like he was to them it seemed like he was out of control. And I said it to say that keep in mind that when some of the foreign women come here, whether they got here on visa or they illegally crossed the border or by some other means, keep in mind that a percentage of them are going to become Americanized. They're going to go out and party. They're going to start hanging out with some of the American women. Some of that culture that American women have, they're going to transfer that onto those women as well. So you have that going on. Other big thing you got to consider is that some of the immigrants that do come here, for example, some of them that get like the visa or in many cases, America, when they, as far as the immigration process, they try to bring in the brightest and the best of each country when they bring them in there. So a lot of times the immigrants that are here, you're talking about like the top percent in their country, like the ones that have really, really good, have like STEM degrees, they got really, really good grades, educated, that kind of thing. So a lot of times these foreign people, they don't necessarily represent the majority of the people within their country. They're kind of like the brightest, the biggest and brightest of their group. And they're coming here to this country. So a lot of times, I hate to say this, but some of them kind of have more of a uppity kind of, outlook on things. So what I'm saying is when they're in their country, keep in mind that some of them, not all, but some of them look down on their people because they were able to come to the United States. They were able to work hard. They were able to get here. So in their mind, why weren't they able to work hard like I did and get ahead and that kind of thing? So when they come to the United States, they already kind of have a sense of like I said, a little bit of feel like a little bit uppity. And they even have that towards even some Americans. They look at us Americans as not like we're not hardworking, we're lazy. That kind of thing. So keep that in mind. So think about trying to approach a woman who has this kind of mindset. It's not going to be, what's the word? It's not going to be as positive as it would be if you were to meet the same woman in her own country. And here's the thing. I'm not saying that all of the highly educated people from other countries, immigrants, that kind of thing, when they come here, they're all uppity. I don't want this to turn into like a thing where people think it's like hatred or xenophobia or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is just to acknowledge that there is a percentage that is like that. That's in every country, even in America. You always have a clashing of social class where there's always a group, where there's always a percentage of people that kind of they kind of feel that they're a little bit higher in status and they're a little bit above everybody else. You're always going to have that percentage. So you have that percentage coming here. Now, let's get to the majority of the other immigrants. And let me say this. Here's the other thing that a lot of people have not taken into account. I don't know if you ever noticed, but a lot of times when the immigrants come here, whether they come from Mexico, they come from Haiti, they come from India, they come from China, what you're going to notice is when they come to the United States, they don't necessarily, what's the word? They tend to, I'm not going to say that, I don't want to use the word segregate, but they tend to have their own little enclave and own little neighborhoods. They don't immerse themselves into the rest of American society and go within like our neighborhoods and that kind of thing. You do hear about certain Hispanic immigrant groups taking over like black neighborhoods and stuff like that. But even then, keep in mind what I'm saying is that they come in as a whole group. It's not like individuals here and there, and they're all spread out throughout the United States. No, they come as a block. They come into a block, into a neighborhood, and they kind of take over that neighborhood. And they tend to stay. A lot of them tend to stay within their own culture and deal with their own people as far as doing business and that kind of thing. And perfect example of this is when I was working. Like I said, as I told you before, when I was working in Florida and it's McDonald's, what I would notice there is they will only hire people from their culture. These were Peruvians, Ecuadorians, It was a few people from Brazil that was there, but what I did notice is that some of them tended to only hire people from their country at that McDonald's. Like, and then on top of that, they would always try to, in many cases, almost find reasons to get rid of some of the American workers there. Like they tried me a few times. They tried to bring in this other guy. I believe he was from Peru. They tried to bring him in, teach him things I was doing, and slowly but surely they were trying to push me off. Because at this time I was a maintenance man. They tried to move me on to doing small little tasks to try to get him to take over some of my other tasks. They had me try to train him. The problem was I had did my job at that point, so like I had did a really really good job, and the guy wasn't. He had a hard time learning some of the things I was teaching him. So they went ahead and just let me keep the job there. But I just say that to say, what you're going to notice is a lot of times they kind of stick to themselves. They hire themselves. They do business with themselves. And they stay with their own little neighborhoods and pockets. Sometimes, and I'm not saying all of them are xenophobic and all of them are, like, I don't want to make it seem like they're all out to get you. Because a lot of them, a lot of Peruvians that I met that were there and the Brazilians, they were very, very cool. Like, I was able to talk with them, hang out with some of them, that kind of thing. But some of them, not all, especially some of the ones that were in management, I just noticed that they tended to treat me and some of the other Haitian workers, they treated us a little bit different than they treated their own. So what I'm saying is it tends to be a little, for now I'm going to say kind of like cliquish, very like cliquish, where everyone kind of keeps to themselves. And you're going to notice that throughout the whole United States. Like I said, you'll notice like you have Little Haiti. Haitians, they stick together. You have Chinatown. The Chinese, they kind of stick together. You know, I'm sure the Irish, they have their own thing. Almost like all these little groups, you just notice it's very segregated in certain parts of the United States. So what I'm saying is a lot of times when the immigrants, they come here, they go into their own little enclave. They tend to date among their own. And then again, as I said before, some of them you will meet here and there, and they will be open to dating Americans, and then you can meet them, you know. So as I said before, I did date one. I did date a Ecuadorian, you know, woman that worked there at that McDonald's. I did date her, but what I am saying is you're going to notice that they tend not to want to, you know, date outside of their culture a lot of times. They kind of stick within their own. So, versus, like in my personal opinion, if I went to Ecuador or I went to Peru, just from personal experience going to Colombia and even going to Brazil, I just know that the xenophobia there would not be like it is here in the United States. You know, here in the United States, everything is about politics. There's so much politics going on. You even have parts of California where if you don't speak Spanish, they won't even hire you. There was actually a sign where all these immigrant groups went into this. I believe it was. I don't want to say it was a McDonald's, but it was a fast food restaurant. They literally put up a sign up that said, if you don't speak any Spanish, they weren't going to hire you there. So I say that to say that a lot of times when few things happen when the immigrants come over here, some of the foreign women come over here, they either pick up the mentality of their group that's already enclaved here, in which they kind of keep to themselves and they date amongst themselves. Because keep in mind, some of these women may be illegal, so they can't just be out in the open wandering around. They're worried about ICE and that kind of thing, so they're going to stay within their own like neighborhood. So a lot of times you're not even going to see these single women there. So they pick up that mentality, or unfortunately some of them become Americanized. They go out and hang with Americans, that kind of thing. But now you're dealing with the I don't need a man mentality. They didn't kind of pick that up and they kind of running with it. Now again, it's not to the extreme that it is with the American women that are native, but you will see traces of that on them. The other thing that a lot of people are not considering is that some of the women that do come here, even the ones that are young, some of the women I worked with, even at the McDonald's, one of the women, she actually had a husband back home. She was probably only about 24 or something like that, but she had a child, and she had a husband back home. So she was just working to store money to send it back home to her husband. So they were being contacted back and forth. Her sister had a boyfriend back in Peru. So a boyfriend was back in Peru. They would do voice, they would do like the video calls, and she would constantly be in contact with him. So a lot of times, some of the immigrant women that are coming here, they have boyfriends or husbands back home. So it's not like they're coming here necessarily single. So you have that going on as well too. So I say that to say that if you were to go back to their countries, to Peru, especially now, Peru is that's actually one country that I actually was thinking about visiting. I haven't gotten a chance to visit that, but I visited, like I said, some of the other countries. I visited Ecuador briefly, but I also did, as I said before, Colombia, Brazil, but definitely I want to check out Peru. And I actually saw the numbers on man versus women. There's actually more women there than men, even amongst the lower age group, like between 18 through to like 30. Like there's actually more women than men. Yeah, I'm actually curious to see what the culture is like there. But what I am saying is that if you were to actually go to these women's country, you would notice that most of these economies there, tourism is a big portion of their economy and the country's income. So so foreigners are really welcome there. They really open their arms to foreigners. They even have things like digital nomad, they welcome digital nomads to come there. So what I'm saying is, versus in the U.S. where they're kind of closed off doing their own thing, it's the opposite in their countries where they're kind of open to people coming in and and contributing into their country, like I said, digital nomads or even tourists to come there and explore the different sites. It builds up their economy. And on top of that, for you to even visit and be there, a lot of women, of course, they know that you must be a man of stable means. And as I've mentioned in plenty of my videos, in a lot of these countries, a man of stable means is very hard to find. So so your value when you go to these countries is very high, and it's very easy to and because the women there are really seeking a partner, a husband, or boyfriend, for many reasons, as I said before, because of the way the economy is built up, it's more beneficial if you have a significant other. It's easier to live, especially if you have more than one income. So a lot of times, the women there, they're really looking for like, really good and stable man. So that being said, when you go to those countries, you're just going to have a completely different experience with the foreign women there than you would in the United States for a lot of the reasons that I have listed. So I just wanted to say that to address that, because that's a talking point that a lot of people put up, and they just say, oh, you can just date the foreign women in the United States. Not necessarily. Yeah, there are a few here and there that I will meet. As I told you before, I have dated one and it did turn out well. But however, I'm willing to say a good portion of them, they're either going to become Americanized or they're going to kind of be in their own enclave, borderline xenophobic, in which they kind of want to date and do business amongst their own versus anyone outside of the culture. They're going to kind of have more of that attitude. You may here and there get to talk to some, be friends, like they'll even be friends with you, but you will notice that they have a different view of Americans and American culture. For example, if you go to like several 7-Elevens, you will notice that in some cases there's a lot of like East Indian people working there. And even though that store's been there several years, you would only really see East Indian people there. You don't see, even with all the Americans around, even when they're in need, they tend to just hire like their niece, nephew to work there, their cousins, that kind of thing. You notice they don't really hire a lot of like American. And I know there are some exceptions. I did go to one store and I did see a guy that was like, I think I saw like a white woman one time or something like. But when I'm saying it in general, you would notice that they tend to hire and do business amongst their own. And I said it, so that's what I'm saying about a lot of the foreign people that are here. Generally, they have they either come in on a visa, and these are like the biggest and brightest of their country, or they come in as maybe like an immigrant or maybe even illegal. But a lot of times you're gonna notice they kind of stick amongst their own. And some of them even have boyfriends, husbands, family members back home. They're just here to work and send money back home. They're not necessarily here to try to necessarily date an American and stay here. Some of them want to do like the passport bros do. They want to take our dollar, go down there, and then kind of live it up. So some of them are kind of doing the same thing. So just keep that in mind next time, anyone kind of brings up the comment about, oh, why don't y'all just date the foreign women here? There's no need for you to leave. It's not necessarily. It's not, on the surface, it sounds like a good argument. But once you start diving into it, you can see why you would have a better experience with a Peruvian woman, a Ecuadorian woman, a Brazilian woman, a Ukrainian woman, a Haitian woman in their own countries, in their own countries, amongst their own culture, in their country where they're open to foreigners. There's less xenophobia. And you're able to go in there, and a lot of times they're going to welcome you as a foreigner, as I said before, because a lot of their economies are built on tourism. So that's all I want to say with this video. Just tell me what you think in the comment section. Please leave your comments. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the notification bell. And until next time, this is your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, signing off.